So let's talk about Mwalimu Sacco and Spire Bank. So currently, Spire Bank, if you look at their financial position, you found that defaulted loans have actually overtaken the net loan book, okay? And they're currently at a negative core capital of 3.4 billion. And remember that the prudential one that has been set, actually it's a requirement by the central bank that you have a core capital of 1 billion Kenya shillings. So these guys are at a negative of 3.14 billion.
Are they still taking deposits?
I think so. Actually,
What is the CBK doing?
the last time we'll get into that, the last time they made profit was 8 years ago, while they were still known as Equatorial Commercial Bank, ECB. Now the thing is, Mwalimu Sacco acquired Spire Bank in 2016. I think they spent around 2.6 billion to buy it. I think they took a stake of around 75%.
Then.
Yeah. So they bought this from the famous businessman who passed on, Merali. Now, Merali sold the bank to Mwalimu. Now, problems has started then. It's a big issue. You found that immediately Merali sold the bank to Mwalimu Sacco. He withdrew 1.7 billion of his deposits. This is 65% of the amount that Mwalimu had used to acquire the bank. Okay, so when he did that, you found that it created an uncertain moment. It created panic. So other people in the bank, other depositors, went and withdrew their deposits because this was an uncertain moment in the banking sector generally, because this was a time that we had seen Imperial Bank, Chase Bank, going down. So there was panic around in the market in general. So people now withdrew their money because they saw that Merali withdrew 1.7 billion. So the people also withdrew, and problems in the bank started from then. There have been allegations, if you look at social media and everywhere, that one of the key people, the CEO, one of the key people in the board, had previous connections, working relationships with Merali. So people are trying to join the dots on that front. So guys, why do you think we are here, and what's the way forward for teachers? Because now it's their deposits, their hard-earned savings, which will now, face the cut.
Well, I think the biggest issue here was the due diligence done, or lack of it, done by...
Lack of it, there's nothing.
Yeah. By
the leadership of Mwalimu Sacco.
Yeah. I think whoever they hired to do the due diligence, maybe didn't flag the issues, or they just did not do a good enough job. Because ideally these are issues that should have been picked up before the transaction. So either they were hoodwinked and the purchase or the investment decision was made very quickly before going through, or just their due diligence was just very poor.
For me, I'm of the opinion that yes, in as much as the leadership of institution, have the fiduciary responsibility, where they have a responsibility to make decisions that will be financially beneficial to their members. Okay. But I think here it's okay that they bought a bank that was loss-making. Okay, many people do that. People buy businesses that are loss-making and they turn it around. For me, my biggest issue was the withdrawal of deposits by Merali. So, and that, led a panic into the market. Okay, so I think that's where everything started going in the wrong direction. For me, I don't see it as necessarily a problem that, they bought a bank that was loss-making.
Yeah. Okay, now this is my position in this. You see, when these guys were buying this bank, in this sort of transactions, the buyer believes that the asset or the company to be acquired, that it is looking to acquire, is undervalued. And if you get a willing seller, they're selling it, or they're willing to sell probably because they think it is overvalued. So I think that was the typical case. That's actually what happened. That Merali, now as the owner of this bank, formerly ECB, now what is it called?
Now it's Spire Bank.
Spire Bank.
Yeah.
So Merali was like, this bank is overvalued. And so it was, I don't know whether to call it malice, but business people, the goal is to make money, yeah? So if I can sell
It's nothing personal.
Nothing personal, yeah.
It's just business.
If this phone is worth 1,000 shillings,
Yeah.
and someone comes to me with 1,500 shillings, I'll be very willing to sell them.
Yeah.
That this phone, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Despite knowing that without my SIM card, this phone is garbage. You
But then
understand? So this is now Merali with his bank.
Yeah.
Knowing so well that his financial ratios are really not stable. And he knows that his funding or his money deposits really are a very huge pillar in this with regards to the stability of this bank.
Yeah.
So Mwalimu Sacco comes and wants to buy this bank because it's loss making and they believe they can turn it around and all that and make gains.
Absolutely.
So they buy it. Not knowing, not assessing the susceptibility. I have to be so slow with that word.
Susceptibility.
No problem, Baba.
Susceptibility.
Yeah.
Susceptibility.
Oh, still didn't get it.
No, it's susceptibility.
You don't even know how to
Susceptibility.
pronounce it. Is the continue?
Yeah. So they did not assess that.
Yeah.
That the bank was really vulnerable to Merali as the owner. That if he removed this is a 3-legged stool. Merali was like holding on to it had control over one leg.
Yeah.
So if he removed one, which he did, the whole thing comes down. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So who is to blame for that? I just looked at the management or the board of directors at Mwalimu Sacco.
Yeah.
I did not get to see their qualifications, but the buck stops with them. Why didn't they get a transaction advisor who was competent enough to make certain determination and tell them that, you know what, you're getting to this transaction or you're purchasing this bank, but these are the risks.
Yeah.
That if this guy decides to get his money, the financial ratios for this bank are not so good, not so stable. If this guy decides to remove his money, you guys would be vulnerable. And that's what we're seeing. And I just asked what Patu is doing.
Dr. Patrick you made your calling. You're calling Dr. Patrick Pato.
Patu is a G, yeah?
Anyway, you guys are friends. You're on first name basis.
So I did not understand when you said that they're in a negative core capital position.
Yeah.
How are they surviving? Because what is is it the minimum deposit? Is it the same thing? The minimum deposit that a bank is required to have with the CBK and core capital requirement, are they the same thing?
Let me just confirm. But usually for bank, the minimum capital required is usually 1 billion.
1 billion.
Yeah.
And the core capital is?
It's probably just a question of semantics.
You think so?
I
It could be
so.
the same thing, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Again, this is something we can clarify over the course of the week as we go along, or by the time we end the conversation, whichever Google comes up quicker.
Yeah,
on
sure.
our Twitter handle and LinkedIn, our website, and all those places. So
So basically, core capital is the minimum amount of capital that a bank ideally should have.
Core capital minimum. Also, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how a bank, because that is supposed to be like the insurance in case you default in paying your depositors.
Yeah.
That's the money that can be used to cushion them, Kiasi at least.
Yeah.
So how can it be negative? Does it mean that they owe the CBK?
Yeah, but I mean, now that I'm
And how
seeing
do they get to that position?
Now that I'm seeing that their default, the size of defaults defaults is actually larger than the net
Assets?
No, the net like amount they've lent, like
Loans
their loan book, their net loan book. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Now that tells me that there's definitely been a big issue and this comes from management in terms of risk assessment. People that you are giving loans, because how have you found yourself in this position where the default loans are larger in size than the
Like
whole loan book.
How
So,
can your
doesn't make
your
sense.
loan book get to such a point of distress?
Absolutely, that's the question I'm asking. What, when it comes to risk assessment, who are you giving the loans? What amount are you giving to? So there must have been a big issue there, and probably
Well, that is Merali's problem, right?
yes, that's an
Not
underlying
Mwalimu
that
Sacco.
was
why
going
is
on
it
for a long
Merali's
time.
problem?
Because the loan book got to that position when the talks of acquisition of this bank by Mwalimu Sacco
But
had
now
already
it's the
started.
problem of Mwalimu Sacco for buying such a thing.
Yeah. So Merali, like, he got a good deal. Like, it's the same. I think you've seen the video that has been going around this week of, I think, someone who was buying an iPhone 13.
There was,
And then when you turn it around, it's ITEL.
It's an item.
So that's what happened. It's you thought you were buying an iPhone. Kumbe, it's just a Mwitu ka Android.
Device.
so Mwalimu Sacco thought they were buying iPhone
iPhone.
13, but they ended up with an item.
They're
Yeah.
like an iPhone for 20k.
So
It's a good deal.
I think there are so many. These NPLs, are they historic? They're loans that were issued before the acquisition, I assume. Or are they?
Yeah, that's why I said it's Merali's problem.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing, there's several issues, and I think most of them are at Mwalimu Sacco's door. Number one, I saw the transaction advances were actually Ernst & Young, who are actually
it's a top firm.
Yeah, it's
global.
a big four firm. So they should know I assume they do know their stuff. I assume they raise the flags, or especially when you look at the deposit, who's controlling a huge percent of deposit and whatnot.
Yeah.
I want to assume that such a firm should have flagged that.
Yeah, notice those red flags.
Yeah. And for Mwalimu Sacco now, I think with this, what they should have done is kind of force Merali to still remain in or have his deposits at Spire, or not move the deposits post the transaction.
Yeah.
And because Merali, once he's done, like, if you're done with a bank, as in, there's no why should you keep your money
why
there,
should you keep your deposit?
especially if
There's a reason you sold it.
especially if you know the skeletons that are there.
Yeah, in the closet.
So he knew the storm was coming.
He knew, yeah.
Most likely he knew, like, it wasn't a good asset. And so I think this is something that probably Mwalimu Sacco should have had in the share purchase agreement. Put in a clause that says post transaction you should not withdraw your deposits.
You should stay for a certain a couple of times.
Yeah, like there should have been a mechanism on how much withdrawing should happen. Let's say for them, they need to do X amount. Yeah, I think they should have gone more into that, because that seems to be the root cause of their issues.
Troubles,
But then also the non-performing loans, again, that's something they should have had a look at, the quality of the loan book before they buy. Before paying out 2.4, is it 2.6 billion.
You know, how do you miss that?
It's
Because
baffling.
when you're buying a bank or a financial institution, they're financial statements.
Yeah, true.
Income statement won't help you much. Okay, profitability and all that. But if you're looking at how how this bank or institution would perform in future, how stable they are, you go to the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Look at the assets. How does it compare to the liabilities and all that? And so as you look at the assets, the NPLs, okay, not NPLs, but the loan book, it's like the biggest asset a bank has.
Yeah.
So you need to look at it with a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, and
then how do you miss out that?
Because for this one, you need to see who are these people who are actually
loaned.
Who have you loaned out to? Like, look at what are their KYCs. What do you know about them?
And if you want to buy a bank, that's information that you are allowed to access.
Yeah. When you're that's part of the due diligence process. Like, this is information that is shared and should be shared and should be looked at. So you probably we don't have access to their books, but we would have seen how much did they give to directors, because there's usually a lot of insider loans. Probably could be a cause. So the existing directors and existing shareholders probably got like very big loans at maybe not competitive rates, and the balance, who was it going to? So I think at the end of the day,
very big maybe.
Yeah, it's a maybe. It's just speculation. But at the end of the day, these are things that ought to have been flagged.
But for
the
me,
due
I think
diligence stage.
that's what actually took place.